have been excitingly waiting to tell everyone about Yakuza Like a Dragon all year long after having played the game all the way back in February, entirely in Japanese. And I can't tell you how happy I am that today is the day I get to elaborate on it some more. My Japanese was good enough to play the Japanese PlayStation 4 release from beginning to end, and after having played it yet again on the Xbox One under the English dub, my fondness for the game has only grown that much bigger. I realize I may be showing my whole hand up front by excitedly speaking its praises, but I hope that through this video you'll give me a chance to further explain why Yakuza Like a Dragon is absolutely worth your time. The 7th mainline entry in the Yakuza franchise, Like a Dragon, no longer features the series' main protagonist, Kazuma Kiryu, but rather features a new hero, Ichiban Kasuga, previously seen in the Japanese-only mobile game Ryuga Gotoku Online. The game starts by rolling over into the new millennium of the year 2001, with a young Ichiban as a low-ranking Yakuza in the Arakawa family, a small-time group within the Tojo clan. He's feeling pretty optimistic about his future within the family when on the morning of January 1st, which happens to be his own birthday, his patriarch asks him to take the fall for a murder performed by another member of the family. And Ichiban sees this as the perfect way to show his gratitude and loyalty to his patriarch. But after 18 years in the slammer, he comes back out to a completely different world, one in which his old family, and even the patriarch he looked up to so very much, wanting to have absolutely nothing to do with him, with zero explanation as to why. After being shot, he wakes up at a homeless encampment in Ijincho, Yokohama, a city neighboring Tokyo, but still far away from the life he's familiar with in Kamurocho. A homeless man by the name of Yu Nanba has stitched up his wound, and slowly they begin to work together to find out why Ichiban was dumped here of all places. Through their adventures, they add on party member after party member, as the secrets behind decades of crimes and multiple crime rings all show themselves to be strangely intertwined with one another. The narrative definitely fits the bill for your standard Yakuza title. Previous entries in the franchise had very heavily featured other leading protagonists, and although fans might be extremely attached to their old favorite badass dad, Ryuga Gotoku Studios really isn't doing anything terribly unexpected here. If you played Yakuza 4 and 5, or even Judgment, then you're already familiar with looking at this exact same world and universe through the eyes of people who aren't Kiryu, and in all cases, the crime drama has absolutely been on point. Like a Dragon is no exception. A lot of Sega and Microsoft's advertising for the game has shown great focus on the absolutely wild and zany antics that your characters can get into throughout the game, and while those are all absolutely there, it doesn't much give an accurate picture of just how much balance there is between the weird and the melodramatic. Both exist in abundance, and both are wonderful. Like a Dragon diverges from the tried and true traditions of the previous Yakuza titles, in that rather than being an action brawler beat-em-up, combat is now that of a traditional turn-based JRPG with all the expectations for a role-playing game you may find therein. And narratively speaking, there is a reason for this. Ichiban name-drops the long-running Dragon Quest franchise several times throughout the story, being a huge inspiration during his life, giving him dreams of becoming a true hero. And Yakuza, Like a Dragon, definitely ends up feeling like a love letter to the phenomenally popular Square Enix series. While many Western audiences may not understand this choice, or think that menu and turn-based mechanics are archaic, it may simply be something of a disjunct between cultures, as Dragon Quest is so ludicrously well loved in Japan that paying homage to the series really makes a lot of sense. JRPGs are my first love, and playing this game felt extremely comfortable and a lot like coming home. Much like in Dragon Quest or in other games like Final Fantasies 3 or 5, you have a very competent job system introduced in Chapter 5, in which you visit a literal job placement agency called Hello Work, the name of a very real Japanese government agency. And at Hello Work, you can switch between a large variety of jobs, some of which require more levels or the improvement of certain stats in order to unlock, with each job earning ranks of their own. And each job comes with a different set of costumes for the character to adorn, and a different variety of equipment required for the task. You can really get creative with your party variety, with large options to deal huge amounts of damage, heal party members, buff your characters, debuff your enemies, and everything in between. At a certain point early on, the game allows you to turn on auto battle and switch between different tactics, keeping your party balanced in their movesets, or focusing primarily on attacking, or primarily on healing. Certain abilities will also come with quick time button indicators, telling you to either time your attack just right, or mash your way into a stronger hit. Pressing a block button just before an attack lands on your party may actually prevent you from taking greater damage. It definitely makes the turn-based battle feel a little more action-oriented. It feels way more interactive and fun than it looks. The enemies you'll be facing are really creative and varied, and since they're all blown out of proportion by Ichiban's active imagination, they're often super kooky and over the top with hilarious names and attacks. The game even features summons, not too dissimilar from those you find across the Final Fantasy franchise. These summons, known as Pound Mates in the English release, are picked up as you come across sub-stories in the game, and a large variety of them feature characters you may remember from previous Yakuza games. A lot of them deliver powerful attacks, but some also deliver buffs or debuffs as well. They do need to be rationed well, however, as Pound Mates are treated similarly to a food delivery service like Postmates, and they cost money straight out of Ichiban's wallet, so you'll want to save them for when you have enough money to use them, and probably during particularly difficult encounters. There are even a couple of dungeons to be found in the game, something no true JRPG would be caught dead without. And while there aren't too many dungeons with very much variety, they do pose an extra challenge, especially near the end of the game. It's possible that if you haven't done everything you could to get the best equipment possible, endgame territory will finally feel like a drag, as the difficulty curve definitely ramps up. But the late game dungeon and fighting coliseum are fun environments that offer great chances to collect levels, money, and rare items for improving equipment. What's great is that your in-game battles aren't actually random. Much like in other recent Yakuza titles, you can actually see your enemies on the map, and you can choose either to engage them or to just go really wide and kind of out of your way to avoid them. You want to explore the entirety of the map of Ijincho as soon as you're given the chance, but you have to be careful of just how far north you go, because the farther away you travel, the more difficult the enemies get. And this may lead you to want to either level grind or go gold farming as early as possible to get the best weapons and equipment. And while I actually really enjoy doing this, it's not exactly necessary. For the first several chapters, you will be extremely broke. But once you hit Chapter 5, you'll be taken to run a small but ever-growing business, not too unlike the business management minigame from Yakuza 0, and this is finally where you have the opportunity to just rake in an ungodly amount of money. The business minigame in Like a Dragon, however, is much more complicated than the business you had Kiryu running in Yakuza 0. It's a ton of work to do, but by doing it, you stand to make yourself absolutely filthy rich, and once you're so rich that you don't know what to do with all that money, now you can spend all that money to buy better equipment, or go visit the garage to craft new weapons or improve old ones. And once you've done that, battles that could have potentially felt like busy work will now become a breeze. Not to mention, you'll definitely want to do the business minigame because it's the only way you'll be able to acquire Eri, the game's optional party member. All the minigames you've come to expect from the Yakuza franchise are back, with even more to see and do and love. Old favorites like darts, golf, karaoke, Sega Classic arcades, pachinko, all that stuff is back. But now there's also Dragon Kart, a Mario Kart clone with a unique and crazy Yakuza flair all unto itself, which will be another place where you'll end up sinking a lot of time and cash as you buy and upgrade new and better karts suited for different tracks, with a deep sub-story that will race you against kooky characters and even online ranking. You'll play a mini-game where you cycle around Yokohama and pick up cans for recycling so that you can collect more money and items. There's tons of other distractions that will be sure to pull you away from the main story, including Sujimon, an app on Ichiban's phone that parodies Pokemon Go, but actually serves as an in-game bestiary as you stumble across new types of enemies. Or you could eventually find yourself falling down the rabbit hole of Part-Time Hero, another phone app that allows you to help people around town by saving them from attackers, delivering items, collecting rare bugs and insects, and all kinds of other various tasks, earning you tons of money and experience. For whatever reason, I found Yakuza Like a Dragon to be infinitely more engaging than previous games in the franchise, and that it made me actively want to complete everything I possibly could. When I originally played Like a Dragon in Japanese earlier this year, I spent 120 hours in the game doing absolutely everything I could possibly find and understand, with my English playthrough looking to be about the same, and I'm not even remotely sorry about doing it twice. Visually speaking, this is probably the best the Dragon Engine has ever looked. Walking around the in-game rendering of Yokohama felt incredibly nostalgic and reminded me of my own experiences walking the streets of Yokohama's Chinatown. It's also almost scary how accurate it is to the real-world streets and buildings of the area. This is some delicious tourism porn. Graphically, while this game is launched on new-gen consoles, it's probably not fair to judge it compared next to other games that were made specifically for the Xbox Series X or the PlayStation 5. You really can't forget that this game already came out on PlayStation 4 at the beginning of the year, even before the new consoles had been announced. And while Microsoft's advertising of fast loading speeds and 60 frames per second do make Like a Dragon look smoother than it ever did on PlayStation 4, it's still not going to look like a game that was made to utilize the tools of a new-gen console. But if you were just looking for an Xbox Series X launch title and high fidelity is your biggest buying factor, that's not gonna come with this game. And while I've seen others reporting that the Series X release has different graphical options in the menu, this is not something I found I could do on the Xbox One X. It definitely still looks about the same as when I played it in Japanese on my PlayStation 4 at the beginning of the year, and frankly that's not a huge need for me, and I was happy just to be playing it at all. The Yakuza franchise has always had great music, and this game is no exception. The main battle theme from the Ijincho area never got old to me, despite hearing it repeatedly. There are also some great boss battle themes, some of which employ the use of chiptunes, letting you know that this truly is a JRPG to rival those on 8-bit consoles. You'll even run across some very familiar tracks from previous titles, or remixes of old Yakuza classics when big, important story moments pop up, and I could feel my blood pumping every time I came across one of those moments. The musical touches are well implemented, fun when necessary, dramatic when needed, and all very well executed. I took this opportunity with my Xbox One copy to give it a run with the new English dub, and I think that you're missing out on quite the amazing treasure if you don't at least give this dub a try. Much like last year's release of Judgment, not only has the game been redubbed into English, but some amazing technology was utilized to recapture the lip flaps of the English voice actors, avoiding the appearance of a Hong Kong movie dub where lip flaps don't quite match up or pacing is kind of weird. The actors actually had the freedom to speak naturally at their own pace, longer or shorter than the Japanese counterpart where needed, and it makes the game feel a whole lot more natural to the player. But I truly believe that touches like these can only serve to broaden the franchise's fan base, especially when the option is still there to switch right back to Japanese audio if you so choose. Perhaps then, the only part of the localization that really disappointed me was the karaoke, which sadly was pretty hit or miss. Mind you, I was actually extremely excited about the concept of these songs getting English counterparts. And in fact, the best known and biggest meme-worthy track, Baka Mitai, is pretty darn good as sung by Nanba's English voice actor Greg Chun. But I found myself pretty bummed out by most of the others, because for as absolutely fantastic as this English voice cast is, they're just not singers. And in the case of another fan favorite song, Like a Butterfly, Aries singing is actually pretty good, but for whatever reason, Ichiban's rap accompaniment is pretty poorly timed, to the point where it was actually kind of distracting and made playing the karaoke minigame a little difficult. This actually seemed less like an issue with the voice acting and more like an issue with the audio engineers not quite laying down his vocals in the right place. While moments near endgame can feel a bit like a slog if you haven't prepared well enough, and even despite the English karaoke not quite being what I expected, the rest of Yakuza Like a Dragon is a delight and even a familiar comfort to play. It's great for people who already love traditional JRPGs, as it does everything you already know how to do from other games. And if you're a longtime Yakuza fan, although it's introducing you to entirely new characters, you're going to be rewarded with familiar settings and cameos before you know it. And the game ends up feeling like a real celebration of everything that came before it. Although we renamed the game in North America, never forget that this is truly Yakuza 7. And that's for good reason, because it's absolutely a well-fitting addition to the franchise. The characters are lovable, and the overarching tone of friendship is absolutely palpable. For those of you who haven't played a Yakuza game yet, it's entirely possible to play this game and have the story and gameplay win out on its own merits. And it could actually serve the purpose of making you wonder what else came before it. Play it sooner rather than later, and feel free to take your time and really enjoy every bit of what the game has to offer, because there is such an abundance of things to do in this game, you may just be hard-pressed to buy another game anytime soon. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this review, please consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/gvgaming so we can create more videos like this one in the future. This has been MarzGurl, and I'll catch you next time on Good Vibes Gaming.